once this meeting is done and the video has rendered, and you'll be able to watch a video recording of this very session. And that being said, today, as with any time we do this, please stop and unmute your mic and interrupt and ask a question. I am joined today by a fellow NEFAC program development and training specialist. There she is. Rhonda Clyett is here with us, and Rhonda is going to be taking the attendance. So thank all of you that have added your name, school and district to the chat box. If you haven't, go ahead and do that now. It's the little bubble up in the top right-hand corner. And Rhonda is also a reading specialist. And since we are using a tech tool today that is primarily focused on reading and student engagement, she's going to be a great addition. So Rhonda will be moderating the chat, so you'll be able to chat with her. She'll interrupt me if there's like a really good question or a point that needs to be made, and I expect her to kind of jump in whenever she feels like there's a connection to be made there. So we're very happy to have her here today. Not sure if we're going to go the full 2 hours, but that's okay. Some of you, I think we have used this tool in professional learning before. And so I'm going to kind of flip what we did the first time with something else. So let me share my screen with you. And if you were part of the earlier session today, I've been having computer problems every time I go to share my screen, and this is a new computer, so I don't know why. So I'm going to make a happy face in case I freeze on your machine. And it looks like everything is working A-okay. So we are here to talk today about this platform called Edji. Edji is a web-based tool that makes reading a very interactive and a very modern and refined process. I know that there is a high level of uncertainty with how the school year is going to go. And so I'm trying to brush up on tools that can be used both in face-to-face classroom instruction, in a hybrid blended model, or in a purely virtual environment. And that's what Edji allows us to do. We can do it in the classroom with our Chromebooks. We can do it while we're away. We can do it asynchronously or synchronously. And so it's a wonderful platform right now. Again, I'm looking for tools that that have this kind of multi-purpose, multifaceted approach, because that's just where we're at right now. Now, I do have a short little presentation that I'm going to kind of modify up as we get to the actual practice side of today, and I'll attach this presentation to the invite as well. So if you go back to the Google Calendar invite for this event, you'll have the recording and the chat and this presentation as well. So I've already introduced myself, approaching my 8th year with the consortium, and my 15th year in education. So about the halfway point. And I feel like every day I'm reminded of how little I know, even though it's been a 15-year process, but vulnerability is okay. As always, our motto for anything that we do, anytime we learn, goes back to that vulnerability, that learning is a messy endeavor. And I love this Einstein quote that you see here on this GIF: anyone who's never made a mistake has never tried anything new. That's what this is all about. I suspect that some of you here may have actually used Edji in the classroom. Any of you that were involved in professional learning that I was doing back at your districts or regionally before we were kind of sent home and quarantined, I've shown this product. So if you can be a helper today in the chat, or if you can add to your experience, I'm looking for you to be the helper today in the session. So we'll look at what is Edji, We'll actually play around with it, then we'll debrief and conclude today's session. So this is kind of going to be our mini agenda for today. So as I said before, Edji is this interactive and modern tool to engage students in reading. But when I say reading, I do mean for ELA and reading classrooms, but any classroom in which text is going to be put in front of students. I even think about math problems, like those cognitively complex word problems that we all wanted to skip whenever back in the day, whenever it was time for just practice in the class. You know, you had 2 or 3 word problems at the end, and they were always the toughest because it was really the application of all those mathematical things. This would be a great tool to lend itself to helping students break down word problems in math. And it's very accommodating for all students. It gives students lots of options and lots of choices. And we can scaffold with this. And that's one reason that I really love it. And their quote is, Edji makes reading engagement visible. And we'll see more about that. Here is another quote about Edji, and I'll let you just kind of take a look at this. What I really like is this last part of this little paragraph here. As their teacher, you can see all of the students' annotations come in live, and it gives you a unique view of when students are attacking this piece of text, what is sticking out to them? What are they writing about? What are they talking about? What are they highlighting? This gives you some controls to see, again, virtually or in the classroom together, what students are thinking about this text. So we'll take a look at what does Edji look like. There are a couple different views, just like all these other products that we use. So there's a teacher view, and this is going to have your account, all of the readings you've set up, all the classes that you have. This is going to be your kind of view of Edji, as kind of the management side of Edji. Whereas the student side of Edji, it's very streamlined and simple for students to actually get in to the Edji. They can have accounts. So if you have a Google Classroom, this can be linked and assigned through your Google Classroom. And then students don't need accounts. Really, students don't need accounts unless you want to compile some historical data on what students have done. But what the students really see is the text. They see your prompt as the teacher, which are the instructions that appear at the top. And then they get whatever text or PDF, images, GIFs, those things that you have, for lack of a better term, pasted into Edji, because essentially that's what it is. The student is just going to see this, and they're going to be ready to just dive in and get to annotating text. This is great for close reading, great for multiple reads with texts. I just can't say enough about how this can be used. And I really want to challenge you guys to think outside of the box. Sure, it's a visible text annotation tool online, but what do you think could be some other applications that would make this meaningful and purposeful for students? I'm going to show you a video, and I'm going to loop it a couple times so you can view it a couple times through. I don't usually have good luck showing videos because I always press the wrong button. But this is what it looks like from a student side. A student can highlight a word, highlight a sentence, highlight a paragraph, and then they're able to attach their own thoughts to that word, that sentence, that passage, whatever it may be. This is where student choice comes into play here. And you can see this platform allows students to not only leave text responses and comments, but they can also leave emojis and even attach audio recordings of their thoughts. So thinking about accommodations that you may be making in the classroom for some students, you may have some students who suffer from dysgraphia, and maybe some students who don't have the typing skills. They can actually just record their audio response if the machine has a microphone on it, which most modern machines do. I don't know why. I'm trying to play this video again for you. Here we go. So let's watch that one more time. So this was an article about technology in the classroom. This person highlighted this sentence because for some reason the instructions were around finding things you agree or disagree with, and so this user is me, is leaving a text response and then leaving emojis. This whole environment is really similar if you think about like YouTube, where users are able to leave comments underneath a video and then comment on comments. You could do the same thing here, which is great if you're teaming students together, which this would lend itself perfectly for teaming students. Having students have that conversation about the text in the platform itself, which also is a great tool for teaching digital citizenship and what responses that are constructive should look like in the modern world. Because I don't know if you've ever read YouTube comment videos or comments on a YouTube video, but it's kind of like the Wild West. There, 90% of them are just critical attacks and trolls, and the rest of them are pretty constructive. So again, teaching that good digital citizenship. So the teacher view here, I've got my readings. These are things that I've set up that I want to use in my courses. This is kind of my dashboard. You could see on the right-hand side, I've got drafts that I haven't finished yet and some other controls for the platform as well. Now I'm going to show you another video that you'll see on your screen. This is showing what a teacher would see on their end or as the comments come in. So you'll notice, and I'm going to pause this video right here, that some of these sentences, some of these words, some of the passages have different color degradations on them. Light yellow means that like one or two students responded to this. When you start getting into the orange, you've got multiple people commenting on this sentence or on these words that were used here. And when you've got this dark red burning fire color, this is something that lots of students have highlighted and responded to. So you'll see this one sentence is bright red. And if you look to the left, these are all like student icons. So this shows me in this class who has responded to this. And this must have been a meaty sentence that really just struck a chord that everyone wanted to talk to. And again, I can see this happening live from the teacher side. And when we get done with this, I can even show this to students on their machines or project it, and they could go back and comment again, or then we can have a discussion as to why was this sentence highlighted the most? Why do you think? Maybe it was, maybe it was something that was lending itself to a standard that we were working on, whether it was an ELA standard or a content standard, and students found that useful. I'm going to let this video play so you can see that as the teacher, I can scroll through and look and see what students are writing about this section of text. I'm going to show this video again. We can see the 74 next to the comments. There were 74 comments that were left in this one document here. And again, I'm looking for what is the hottest highlighted annotation in this text. And then I can go through as the teacher and respond to students and give them feedback right then and there in the moment, or students can give feedback to one another. So it's a really cool tool. It is free for the basic view. Let me go back. It is free. You can build a free account. And I think that under the free account, you can only have 3 or 4 active readings. Those are readings that you need to use with your classes. Maybe you teach multiple sections or multiple preps, and you want to use one with your civics and one with your government class. You could do that. Now there is a pro version. I want to say it's $60 for a year. And then there are some ways to get it free. And then there's also ways that whole entire schools can get access to this for a nominal fee. And as we go through, I'll take a look at this. Now, I told you that I'm going to modify this up and make it a little bit different than what I did before. But I don't want to lose the spirit of the instructional capability at the same time. So I'm going to push pause right now, and I am going to check the chat and see, are there any questions? Or does anyone want to unmute their microphone and ask any questions before we kind of dive into the lesson side of this?
Yeah. Hi.
Hey.
Do you have the ability to control who can and can't see each other's comments? Like, could I make it so every student can only see their own comments?
Yeah, I think that there are some controls to manage as the teacher. For instance, if you didn't want students leaving emojis or audio, you could turn that off. But that's a good question that when I start going through how to build, let's take a look at that, because I'm interested in that under the settings as well. And that's actually such a really good question. Because it goes back to the, you gotta walk before you start to run. And I think personally, I'll speak to, sometimes I've put a tool in front of students with all the bells and whistles turned on because I thought it would just be cool and play out, when really if it's about getting that routine practice, like we're going to use this a bit in my class. So I need you to get used to the environment, the newness, let the novelty wear off a little bit. I may not want to give full control and full options to the students at once. Maybe I want to introduce this to them at first with just emojis and just, why are there so many smiley faces next to this sentence? Or why is there, I saw 17 of the 23 of you put the thinky face next to this definition. Why? That would be great for getting those classroom discussions started around that. So we'll take a look at that. Now, is there anything else, by the way?
Adam, there is a question about, can this be used on iPads?
Yes, very good question. Now, I think it's a little tough to highlight as it is. So you may want to play with this. And if you have like a teenager or something at home who's a captive audience, you may want to have like your teenager try this with you. So you're in the teacher seat and someone's helping you practice, or an instructional coach or a colleague. But last I knew, we did try it. And I'll actually, as we do this today, I'll try it with I got my iPad mini here. So I'll try that and we can do a little test with that. But anything else before we kind of get started? I'll show you what we did earlier in the summer, because I know some of you probably saw this. And it was this idea of how does this fit into both a face-to-face lesson as well as a virtual lesson. So I've got a few slides here. So I'm just going to kind of cruise through because my reading, I wanted to switch it up and I was kind of thinking in a different vein. So I have switched it up, but I'll show you. So I'm using an 8th grade science class as an example for this model lesson today. And it's really getting, the content is getting students to understand the difference between scientific theory and a scientific law. And I think some of you probably saw this in our learning community too when we did this live. This is an important benchmark, part of a bigger standard that will make students successful all throughout college, the workplace, just really understanding what's the difference between a theory and a law. And so in the classroom, you know, we'd frame this around looking at similarities and differences between these two concepts. We would start off with identifying our learning targets and success criteria. And so this goes back to what the standard says and the success criteria that I or my team has identified. That's going to let me know that students have this skill down. And really the product that I want to walk away with after this 43, 45-minute class period is for students to help me build this 2-column chart here and to have this in their notes of the different characteristics and qualities between a scientific law and a scientific theory. And so what I would do is then put the text in front of the students through Edji, have them interact, and then by looking at what they're highlighting, begin asking those questions that I've put into my lesson plan and really fleshing this out. And that would take about a 45-minute class period to get that done, especially if we went back at the end of the period, looked at our learning targets and success criteria, and did an exit ticket as well, which can be done virtually with a Google form or various other means if this was a purely virtual environment. But I wanted to look at a text that was kind of more meaningful to our instructional practice at this time of the year. Normally, we're prepping right now for pre-planning. We're moving into new classrooms soon. We're getting supplies together. We're calling up friends and families like, hey, can you buy me some boxes of pencils and some extra paper and things like this for my classroom? And I know that a lot of us are going to be pushed back, some further than others. But I wanted to use an article that spoke to building relationships with students. And so we're going to do that. Now, one thing I want to show you is a video, because in a minute, we're going to try this Edji out. So we're going to be a little bit like Christopher Columbus and go exploring here. There is one skill that you kind of have to get down before we get into this. So I'm going to play this little video here. In a minute, I'm going to ask that you, on your browser, open up a new tab, not a new window, but just a new tab on your browser. You're going to leave this tab open that actually has the Google Meet. Don't touch that one, but you'll see, like on Chrome, you'll have a little plus sign where you can open a new tab. Same thing in Firefox or whatever browser that you're using. We're going to open up a new tab. You'll still be able to hear me, but you'll also be able to actually go to Edji and get started. So on the teacher side, let me show you what this looks like. So in my dashboard as the teacher, I've set up this article called Relationships and Expectations. And this is from a world-renowned instructional coach Steve Barkley. He's someone who I visit his blog often, read his books, because it's helped my instructional practice, and that's why I believe in it. I am going to call your group Tech Tuesday the Avengers. So here I've got the group name. Now, if this was the classroom, I could have different groups for different periods. So I could have periods 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or I could even have groups within periods. So maybe teams of students, just depends on how you want to break this up. There is a code here, and that is actually going to be the code that you will use to get into this. So before you open a new tab on your screen, I'm going to walk you through what we're going to do. Now this, I'm probably going to have to sign out. Maybe I won't. Yes, I will. Let me sign out real quick. All right, so what you're going to do in about 30 seconds is you're going to go to this website, which is edji.it. That's edji.it. When you get to this page, what I want you to do is, I'll leave the code up here in a minute once we get in, but up here in the top where you see this little key icon and the word code that's grayed out, you will put in the following code. I hope I spelled that right. 4F5S, and then you will enter in your name. You don't have to log in with an account, and you're good to go. So this is what you will see when you log in. Notice the instructions. Please read the passage. Highlight words or text that you either agree with or have questions about. Write a short response to the word or text you've highlighted, giving me reasons why you've highlighted the text, and use an emoji if you like. Now, these directions will be at the top of your page when you log in. And I've also made some quick labels. These are like hashtags, just like on Twitter or on Instagram, where you can just quickly hashtag something. I've made some different hashtags that you can use. Feel free to. And then below is the actual article on relationships and expectations. So I'm going to give you, and I'm going to show you again before we get started, but I'm going to set aside 8 minutes for us to get into this article, highlight, and then annotate either words, sentences, sections of passages, whatever strikes you, whatever you agree with, whatever you have questions about. Keep it civil. Remember our digital citizenship rules that apply here. So let me show this once again to you. You'll go to edji.it right here, enter in the code, and I'll show you what the code is going to be. Oh. Let me see if I can remember which account I actually... Well, I don't think that's it. Give me 1 second here, guys. Sorry about that. I'm having technical difficulties. There we go. So when you go to edji.it, you'll put this code in. 4F5S. Remember, you're not creating an account. You're entering as a guest. And I'm going to set aside 8 minutes for us to just get in there and play. I'm going to try it with the iPad to make sure it works. Leave this tab open, open a new tab, edji.it, and then the code is 4F5S to get in. And when you're in, and you can start annotating away. Are there any questions that anyone has, or would anyone like me to show anything again? Rhonda put the link and the code in the chat box just in case you need that again.
Hey, Adam, your mic was off, whatever you said.
I'm glad you're paying close attention, Rhonda. Thank you. I said just take another minute, but at this point, another 30 seconds to finish up your reading and to make a comment. I did learn something new here today too, to go back and to address one of the questions from earlier. So the good news is it works with an iPad. I logged in as a guest. It should say Adam's iPad, and I was able to leave a comment on here. I was able to highlight the text, and it came up no problem. So that's good to know. And I'm glad that we know that now. So what I also learned was that during this time, I was the only one who was able to make a comment on your comment. So via this means, this eliminated students from being able to comment to one another. However, there is a button that I can press right here from this screen that will allow that to happen. So over here, there is a heat vision button, and it is off right now. If I turn that on and you go and look back at your tab, you'll notice that you can see the same as the teacher. And I'm showing you my iPad in case you closed out your screen. But here, when I turn on the heat vision, as a student, I can see, and now my button over here on the left says discuss. And now when I click discuss, now I can start commenting to the original annotations. So again, it goes back to how do you want to deploy this at the start of the school year? Do you want students full sprinting and having all the options, or do you want to take it like baby steps? Like what about Bob with Bill Murray? Remember baby steps? And maybe you just want to baby step it out. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Let's look here though, because the thing that I'm seeing that was highlighted the most were the 5 suggested steps. This was that script for having the mini talk with students at the beginning of the year. Again, something that is looks different at the secondary versus elementary level just because of the time factor. At the secondary, this may be something that has to happen over multiple periods and days. Of course, if you're going virtually, this is going to look different too. This may be something that's a little bit more easier to deploy. I wonder, and you can turn on your mic or type in the chat box, why do you think the majority of us who commented on this section right here? What was it about this section that was worthy of highlighting and commenting?
I know that for myself, because when we went digital in the spring, we were working with students that we'd had for the last 9 weeks. So we were familiar with our kids. So my hope and prayer is that we do go digital for the first 9 weeks of this school year at least. But again, we're starting a new school year. I teach 7th grade. So these are kids I've never seen before because they're coming from a different school. And I have no relationship with them. And I'm big on relationships with my students. And so, like I wrote on here, one of my big concerns is establishing that relationship online. And I think that these go very well along with that idea.
I love it. Thank you, Karma. Yeah, and Karma, the schools are a little bit different here in Putnam County. We've got a 6th grade center and then some middle schools that are just 7th and 8th grade. And so you can understand I don't know. They're not walking the halls. It's not like I'm teaching an 8th grade course and I've seen these 7th graders kind of roaming around and being friends with with students that I have in my class. So it's a big difference. So yeah, I totally understand that. Without having kind of with the uncertainty factor hanging out there, this relationship piece is going to be huge. Does anyone want to add to what Karma just commented on there? So Katricia said she liked it because it was a brief kind of outline. Yeah, it's like a mini script to take back, and well, maybe not a script, but a blueprint for kind of how to have this initial relationship building piece. Now, I as the teacher can go to the comments and we could take a look at some of these. And Nancy left a great, these don't have to be terribly time consuming, but what value? And Nancy, I think you hit the nail on the head right here. It's this relationship of time, but value that gets out of that. And so if you want to get started off on the right foot, it's not a bad idea to have a plan to go about and do this. Yeah, great way to start build trust in the beginning of school year. Thanks, Jessica. And Rob said, this is cool. I love it. It is pretty cool.
I thought that this would be good, like if we were online, like with the 5-minute conferences, this would be like a good little outline just to give you a basic idea of, you know, what you're trying to get through to the kids.
Right, right. Yeah. So in a nutshell, I mean, when you look at mine, you can see that I have captured here the annotations. Now, again, when you use this with content that's specific to your courses, you're going to be giving instructions that are specific to the task at hand. So maybe in a civics classroom, we're reading an article, and I want students to point out characteristics of amendments. So maybe we're talking Bill of Rights, maybe we're talking right to assembly, and I want them to read an article and highlight and leave a message to address things that we've already covered in class or something that aligns with definitions. And so this would lend itself to that. Now, I can go in here and I'm going to click over here. These are my controls as the teacher. These are my teacher controls. And I really like this. I can click on the students that were in here and I can actually go to a specific student and look at their comments or view the things that they've highlighted. So I'm going through students here to find out what each student has highlighted, or I could look like I'm looking at all of the comments that Karma left. So I can go from this big class-wide heat map and drill down to specific students. And again, thinking about whether it's virtual or face-to-face, maybe I have been working with students in small group as far as main idea and key details. If this were an ELA classroom. And so I'm going to look for those students specifically to see if they're able to pull out key ideas and details from the text and then give them that instant feedback that I can do from my teacher machine. And again, turning heat vision on or off for them, they'll be able to see it on their devices. If we were in the classroom, I could also project what I'm seeing on my screen as the teacher once students got done reading. I can quickly go to the comments this way. And if you have the paid version of this, you can get some expanded data per student. So here's Karma's reading recap. Karma, I'm going to use you as a guinea pig. I hope you don't mind here. But here I can look at Karma's stats. She's had this article up for 18 minutes. She's left 5 comments. I can see the average for this was 1 because we were just playing around. I could see that Karma left text. She didn't leave any emojis or any audio replies. So this gives me a breakdown for my students. I could drill, we could go look at Nancy's comments.
I actually did leave one emoji.
Oh, did you? I wonder why it
On
didn't.
the end of my text, so maybe it didn't count it because it had words with it.
Oh, maybe so. And I wonder if you leave it from your keyboard, if you were on your phone and you use those emojis, if it would count against it or not. But here, I could also give feedback to Karma directly. Like, you hit the nail on the head. You grabbed all this evidence that we're going to need for this next section, or you hit the instructions perfectly. Or maybe I can say, next time, try leaving some emoji comments because I want to get a picture of what's going on inside your head. But I'm able to give students that feedback in multiple places here, which is another reason why I really, really like this. Something else that, well, actually, let me stop before I go on to anything else. Does anyone have any questions? Do you want to unmute your mic or type into the chat box any questions about what we just did and looked at? That's okay if we don't. Interrupt me if you do, though, if the mood strikes you. So another cool feature about this is the ability for teachers to share readings with each other. Readings is how Edji defines a text or whatever you want to use. You can share readings with other teachers if you mark things as public. So, for example, this reading that I just made, I set as part of the settings that this was a public reading. That means this is available to for anyone to just search if they're searching for computers technical at the university or college level. You can see I have one called The Parts of a Cell, which is for science grades 6 to 7. And it is a public reading as well. So you're able to share and kind of team with other colleagues to create different readings. And I'll show you what it looks like to create a reading. So let's say that I really like this. I want to make a couple changes, but I want to essentially copy the same thing that I just did. I can click the little hamburger menu here and then click on the copy and edit button. This is what you see whenever you start a reading in Edji. Of course, everything's going to be blank when you start a fresh new one, but you get to title it. Here's where you can choose, do I want to make this public so other teachers can find this and make this a part of their Edji, or do I want to make it private? You can drag and select what grade levels is this appropriate for. You can then select multiple subjects, depending upon, again, what content you're using. And here is where you type your instructions. Now, the instructions are available for students the whole time that they're working up at the top of their Edji reading. So it'll always be there to tell them what to do. And then you can see here, what I've done is I have just copied text off of a blog post and pasted it here into this reading template environment. I was able to go through and well, I was initially able to go through and format the text. I don't know why it's not letting me right now. Go back and format the text. You'll notice over here on the left-hand side, you have some controls to manage. You can add pictures and GIFs. You could add a PDF document to this, or you could add a question, which is great because now while we're reading, I could insert a question in between two passages and it becomes kind of a formative assessment where I can get some more data. So again, if we were doing scientific theory versus scientific law, I may include after the passage about what is a scientific theory, I may include a question underneath it so that students have to do something with their new learning. They have to apply it in some way, they have to recognize it, but the capability is there to even add a question. And it simply works as kind of like wherever your mouse cursor is at, you can add a question. And for example, blah, blah, blah. And then I could choose how do I want students to answer this question. I guess I have to put a question mark, blah, blah, blah. And then I can choose, I want them to use text. I don't want them to use an emoji and I don't want them to use audio. But again, there may be times for accommodations for students where you do want them to use audio to record their answers. Just depends on what skill, what activity, what content you're using. But great for speaking and listening skills to do this. If you've been like, I want you to include the question as part of your answer to make it more full and correct, you could do that as well by listening to their audio and having them record it. And again, all they need is a microphone on their machine to make that happen. So what's great is while you're working, you can actually hit the preview button that's over here in the top right-hand corner and visually look and see, oh, okay, this is how my formatting looks. These are where the pictures are. I've bolded this. I've underlined this. It looks good. And if you want to, then you can share. And when you share, this is when you turn it on live so that you can assign it to an actual class. Now, I've assigned it to you guys as the Tech Tuesdays, the Avengers. And if I wanted to up here, I could create a whole new group. So maybe there was going to be a second period. So maybe I could say Tech Tuesday, we'll call this group the X-Men. Okay. Now I could change up the instructions for this reading group depending upon if I had a different ask of them or if I wanted them to do something different. And again, this could be in a period or from period to period. And I could turn on my advanced settings. Maybe I don't want this group to use emoji or audio. I just want them to type text. And so if I click create group, now I have not only a different code down here at the bottom, but I have a whole new space for them as a group where I can go back in time and look at what they actually did as far as annotating and commenting on this article, which is great. If I go look at, let's see, something we've done in the past. What's the difference between a scientific law and theory? I could go back, I guess because I've archived it, I can't look at, I'd have to make it active again, but everything's there. All 113 comments that have been left on this article are there. But again, I'm using the free basic version of this. So you can only have a few live readings going at any one given time. Let's click here and see how much it is. If we so a school plan, a small school up to 50 teachers, looks like it's about $1,000 for a year. If you just wanted this for yourself, but you wanted to have more readings, you could have unlimited readings for $5 a month. It looks like it's charged annually, so that would be $60. It really totally unlocks everything. The number of students you can have in an article, the number of active readings you could have going at any given time. The only thing you don't get is the private lesson library. That is actually part of the academy, with the Edji Hero Academy that is here. Looks like it's starting at $180 a year for 5 licenses. So that looks like something that the district would have to buy, but you could yourself buy the Edji Hero and unlock everything all at once. I will say they have a good guide. So this section that's part of the menu, that's the guide section. It's got some great articles, some PDFs, and some slideshow presentations. This was actually created by a elementary school teacher. He saw a need during his close readings to make it more interactive, and he figured out how to program and do all of this. I have trouble, fitting in a walk in the afternoon, but this guy is teaching his 5th grade class and writing all this programming out. I would really implore you, if you want to play around with this, to read the Getting Started with Edji guide. And if you scroll down here, there is a slideshow presentation that the creator of Edji, that elementary school teacher, has made that really shows you everything that you can do. And he also is compiling ideas that teachers send him. He's adding to this slideshow all the time. So here we've got an idea for close reading, an idea to use it as an exit slip, as a way to have students evaluate projects or have you evaluate their projects. Dot voting. I saw one that was for a classroom library. Here's an art study, because you can upload images that can be commented on. This teacher was using it as an art study, morning meetings, class expectations, analyzing artifacts. This was one with where they were looking at poetry, so they were able to watch a video in the class and look at the lyrics and respond to them in real time. But there's like, let's see, there's 60 different ideas that are part of this. And if you're in Edji, it's just the guide page that's on your screen here as part of your dashboard. I would just say spend some time reading over it. Go to YouTube, search for Edji, and you'll see all of the different ways that teachers are using this. And again, thinking synchronous, asynchronous, face-to-face, blended, total virtual. This is a platform that can really accommodate all those different situations that we may have when we go back to school. So I've said a lot. I know I've said a lot because my throat is dry. So let me take a sip. Thank you for bearing with me. Does anyone have any questions? Is there anything in the chat box hanging out? Does anyone want to unmute the mic and ask anything?
Adam, with the free account, is there a maximum number of students that can be in Edji?
Yes, I want to say it's 30. Let me double check, because it used to be here under, this is the guy who developed this idea, the 5th grade teacher. There's a video of him. Let's do this. How many students Edji at one time, basic account? I know it does limit you, but now I'm not seeing anything on how many. But last I checked, it was 30, which for, again, now if you're teaching a CTE course at the secondary level and you've got multiple sections in a big classroom, that may not be accommodating for the basic plan. That I could see that. But yeah, it used to be right here. Sorry, Q. No, I wish I had a better answer for you.
That's okay.
Yeah, here are his videos that he's compiled. How to share a reading, should my students make an account? All this is here for free to find out and read. I didn't show you the Discover button that's up at the top. This is how you find different articles and things that teachers have used that they've made public. So, for instance, if we want to look up Lincoln, oh, there's mine. Lincoln suspends habeas corpus, Emancipation Proclamation. So I could simply copy any of these readings over. There was a question last time about copyright, and I'll say what I say about copyright every time. If you are charging someone to use your reading, if you're charging students to do their classwork, then yeah, you're probably in violation of copyright claims. If you are using it for purely educational purposes in a public school setting, then that would fall under fair use for education laws. Again, you're not charging, you're not a private school who's charging parents for curriculum. And you can't sell this on a teachers pay teachers, I guess. I don't know how you would do that because it's made kind of like Kahoot, where you could share a Kahoot that you've developed or you could find one that's already developed. It's kind of the same idea here. Any other questions that you guys have? I feel like I must have just talked so fast, like the Micro Machines guy from back in the day. Anything else anyone want to turn on their mic or ask in the chat box? Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Maria, Robert. Let me know if you get in and play. Again, look for those free resources that are on the website. Go to YouTube. And if you have any other questions, because I'm always wanting to learn this as well, shoot me an email and just ask away. I want to help you be successful. So let me know how it goes. Thank you, Karma. I appreciate it. I hope everyone has a great rest of your summer and getting into pre-planning. Just to let you know, if you've attended multiple sessions for Tech Tuesday, probably at the beginning of next week, we're going to have our follow-up form. It's a Google form, should be very straightforward to be able to award in-service credit if you've attended 3 of these guys. Thank you. And you guys are so sweet. Jennifer, thank you. Kristen, thank you for joining. And Nancy, thank you. Here's to an amazing new school year, and new it certainly is. There's no playbook for this, right? Except for kind of what we looked at today in our reading, building relationships with students and setting our expectations. So the recording, again, will be attached to the Google invite if you go back to your calendar, and it should take about 20 or 30 minutes to render, and it will be made available. Thank you all. Be safe, appreciate it, and have a good rest of your day.